Thank you for having me in the Data Bytes event. My name is Lenchner, and I'm the CEO of Luminati Networks. Before I dive into the very important topic of ethics in data collection, let me tell you just a bit about Luminati and what we're doing. Luminati is an extensive online data collection platform for public and openly available web data. We are committed to delivering the most accurate, reliable, and ethically sourced web data to all of our customers, basically making the public web transparent again, as it should be, without any discrimination. We were founded in 2014 with one goal in mind, which is to provide free and transparent access to the internet for all organizations, big or small. Ever since then, we've been expanding our reach, and these days we serve thousands of customers from across almost every industry, sector, or market, and everyone who basically require large-scale, openly available or public online data. Collection of web data has become mission critical to many companies, including Fortune 500 companies, many of which are UK-based. We also extended this commitment and support to over 65 governments, NGOs, NPOs, and leading academic institutions that needs data for a variety of research and education projects, as well as initiatives that fight against social injustice. And I would go as far as sometimes even saving lives. We had such cases, all pro bono, of course. We have a special interest in the UK since we are a UK-owned company. Therefore, we very naturally gravitate towards the UK. We even recently ran several seminars and educational sessions with King's College and Oxford University, among others. Today, Luminati's teams are placed all over the globe, and we are about 230 team members in total and growing rapidly. So when we relate to ethics in data collection, we often focus on data privacy, which is great. But what about the behind the scenes of every data collection operation? The data is being collected somehow, and when you talk about data privacy, it's after the data was collected already. Isn't it just as important to know how the data is sourced or what kind of technology is used to in the data collection process? What about network? How do you build the data collection network? Is the network monitored? How it's monitored? So on. So please don't get me wrong, especially not in this forum. Data privacy is a critical element. And I think that any data privacy law or regulation is a great framework for all of us to follow. I mean, finally, there's no really gray areas. You can actually understand what you need to do when it comes to data privacy. I also think that we should have the same kind of frameworks when it comes to the data collection operation itself. As always, technology moves much faster than the regulators, or usually much faster than the regulators, but it's important that we address these critical ethical questions now before we are made to pay a heavy price in the future, because the scale of the online data collection is already massive. Matters such as respecting the digital ecosystem that you're working on and ensuring that we don't cause any harm are massively important. I mean, data or web information is probably an organization's most powerful tool today. Data is almost like people are saying data is the new oil. I think that it's actually the new water. It's everywhere. You can't really live without it as an organization. For this reason, ethics in the data sphere should cover the entire cycle of the data collection operation, which isn't really happening today. So how do we define what's ethical, what's not ethical? Or what do we focus on when building a data collection ethical framework? I think these three key focus areas that I'm about to discuss will cover all initial and even advanced plans. The first and most vital element is transparency, or at least commitment to transparency if you're just starting, but in everything that you're doing, whether it's with your technology while building your data collection network, or just within your organization's methodologies or your working culture, transparency should guide you. So transparency will often ensure that you are operating on the ethical side of the equation, because people will just feel free to tell you if you aren't. I'm happy to further elaborate on this topic in the Q&A section and share how we do this. The second and possibly most challenging step is defining your ethical code early on. What does it mean? I often remove the financial aspect of every ethical decision I have to make as a CEO of a data collection company. And I ask myself, what cases am I and the company are willing to engage in? Once you just disconnected the financial element, it all becomes a bit more clear. And I mean, what cases are crossing our red lines? It's a bit easier to decide on. I do that often to make sure I keep up with the market shifts. An example about this specific tip is, let's say if you take the online ecosystem and unethical behaviors, we can talk about fake social media engagement. Fake social media engagement was once considered somewhat or very slightly acceptable. Today, that is an activity that is considered unethical in any way. For example, Twitch.com, which I guess most of you know, had declared officially a war on fake social media engagement. At the time, that was an unprecedented move. Now, however, it's become the norm. So when you make your decision and define your ethical code, don't be afraid to communicate it. Make sure your entire organization, as well as your ecosystem, are fully aware of your ethical code. Worst case, you'll learn and you'll adjust it. Last but not least, keep monitoring. You need to safeguard your data and your partner's data at all costs. This is what your operation relies on. So conduct tests, whether they are manual or automated, better to do both. Have a very comprehensive and strict compliance procedures in place to rule out any risk taking. Additionally, invite external audits and use methods and processes that will make this mission a major success. You can read more about this specifically in Illuminati's NDS consultation submission that we filed a couple of months ago. So during the talk, I mentioned and referred to a guiding framework several times. Why is that? Like me, I'm sure that you also find that ethics as a topic is never easy to define. What is ethical for one is not the case for the other. For sure, it's a different case if you're a machine and everything is operating on the machine. When it comes to data, that is twice as challenging, I think. As such, very recently, as you can see in this slide, together with the World Ethical Data Forum, we initiated an external committee that will serve as a carrying or guiding framework for all of these complex questions that we all face, and hopefully it will provide frequent and continuous guidance. Whether it's with reports or updated releases or even studies, we aim for this committee to serve as the go-to address for all data critical matters. So if you wish to join, let me know. We are recruiting members as we speak. We already recruited the first few, and we are very happy to extend the invitation to all of you, all of the attendees of Data Bytes. So after all of this talk about ethics, and I'm going to finish in 30 seconds, I hope you have your ethical code well tuned in by now. If I had to provide it all in one sentence, I would say that data collection ethics, not just in the commercial ecosystem, relies on your willingness to address critical questions early on. Don't close your eyes. And on being transparent with yourself, your partners or users, whoever it will be, and your industry all the way through. This will lead you to create this or select the right technology and methodologies, and of course your data collection operation. When it comes to data collection ethics, transparency is really the ingredient you cannot do without. The brighter the light, the better your chances are to succeed. Thank you, Gavin, for having me. And getting back to your initial opening slide, I saw that in the after party when we have drinks, you talked about the Israeli brandy, and as an Israeli, I would like a glass of these.
Excellent. I look forward to us trying to source some of that. Thank you very much, Or. We've got some great questions coming in already, but just to remind everybody that if you are watching on Slido, you can obviously put the questions there. And if you happen to be on the IFG YouTube channel, you can go to bit.ly/SlidoDB17 to ask all some questions. So let's start with another one from Anonymous, who's having a very busy evening. What is ethical for one is not the case for another, they say. How do you cope with differences in both legal regime and attitudes in different countries? For example, the US versus the UK.
Great. Great question. Thank you, Anonymous. So the thing is that there are no borders in the country that we operate, which is the web. So now we have the biggest pool of information in the history of mankind. Without any borders, you can see everything no matter where you are. You can collect it if it's publicly available, no matter where you are and who you are. But still, you have to have some regulations and some laws. So when it comes to legal, actually, it's really easy. You just need to understand that there are laws and you need to comply. So you can just take the legal advice and do that. It's easy with legal, really. We're doing it every day. So you need to check the law and make sure you comply. I completely agree, and this is what we talk a lot about, that when it comes to what's ethical and what's not, it's not just that I'll perceive something as ethical and maybe someone in different geolocation will see it as an unethical. As I said in the slides, what the computer will think, I mean, eventually he's the one who's executing the orders. So ethics is a very complicated area. So this is one reason why we're initiating the ethical committee, just because there aren't any guidelines about what to do. So we are a self-regulated company because we realized early on when we just started at around 2014 that if we want to be here for the long term, and we do, we have to regulate ourselves because it will take a decade until someone else will tell us how to do things. And we've been doing something pretty new. So we just listed down, and we have just a public page shows all this information of what it means to be ethical on the data collection industry. For example, we require to know in a documented way what is the specific use case of every one of our customers. Now, we have thousands and thousands of customers. This is a very counterintuitive thing to do when you're a commercial business that wants to have as many customers as you can. But still, we have a team of 7 full-time compliance officers that all day long, 24/7, interviewing potential customers. I would even say interrogating them to understand what is their use case and what they're trying to do. This is one way to do it. And we have this page, what we call luminati.io/ethical, where you can find all of these all of our ethical approach and guidelines.
Excellent, thank you. We've got a couple of questions that follow on really nicely from that. One from Anonymous, again, who asks, is unethical data collection easy to spot? What does it look like? And a question from Mary Susan Barry, which is a bit more specific around how do you determine if an algorithm is ethical or not?
Great. So first of all, I think that first of all, you need to understand what can be the damage. So if someone is asking to do a specific project with our platform, for example, and we understand the use case, then we need to understand also what can be the potential damage. For example, if the data collection operation will be too massive, so too many requests to a certain data source, which is a website, in a very short period of time, we're risking in slowing down that website, okay? Is it legal? Yeah, I mean, it's not good that it's legal, but there isn't any law that tells you you can slow down a server. It's for sure it's unethical. And it will also damage our customer, ourselves, the whole industry, for sure the users of the website. So ethical? No, it's not ethical. So here we understood the damage. Then once you understand the damage, you can take the precautions and measurements to make sure that an unethical behavior won't happen, even unintentionally, by an irresponsible algorithm. So in this case, for example, we have around 500 million metrics okay, 500 million metrics, and that are being run in real time all the time. A large portion of them is actually to check this, to make sure that there isn't any what we call DDoS attack on a server, intentionally or unintentionally. This is just one example again.
Great. Thank you. We've got about 3 minutes left, so there will be a few more questions we can squeeze in. Anonymous, again, asks, what do you mean by transparency? What should be transparent and who for? So
I think that the answer is pretty easy. If you don't must to hide it, just make sure it's transparent. So, for example, in the company, and we're a business, inside the company, everything is transparent except the employees' compensation. And everything else is completely transparent to everyone. Now, that's not even related to ethical, but to an ethical approach, but it is actually because the mindset of the employees in Illuminati is that no hiding, nothing, everything is open. This is also how we write the code. This is also how we talk to customers. This is also how we declare on our intentions to do something. So I think that if you don't have to hide it, for example, if it's something private data, for example, like employee compensation, which I also consider maybe we should make it transparent one day, then the default should be transparent. And unfortunately, that is not the case. The web is supposed to be transparent. When we're talking about publicly available data, unfortunately, the public data is not available. You as an individual can open a browser and see data, any website that you want to see, for example. If you're an organization, if you're a researcher from Oxford and you want to conduct a large-scale research by collecting massive amounts of data online, you'll get blocked. This is discrimination. So basically, if all of the websites in the world will just be open, I wouldn't even go that far saying have an API for it, but at least won't make a specific effort to block you. This is real transparency that creates competition, and competition is always a good thing for us, the consumers, the individuals, the citizens of the internet.
Excellent. We've got 45 seconds. I'm going to squeeze in one final question. James Ellis asks, have you seen the GDS, the Government Digital Service here in the UK, data ethics framework? What did you think? So I suppose there's a wider question. Are there any good ethics frameworks that you'd point people towards? Yes, I've seen it, and I see many others. The problem currently is that it's too focused on data privacy. That's fine, but you have too many of these. Privacy is covered from any aspect. We're talking about what comes before you get the data, how you extract the data. That's a completely different thing, and it's just an untouched territory from the ethics and compliance point of view. And this is what we're trying to solve also. Perfect. That's the perfect place to end. Or thank you very much indeed. It's really great to have a different perspective on sort of data ethics. So thank you very much.